Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Spartacus, and today we're going to be making predictions for 3 of my past Survivor Dreamcast seasons. And so we're talking about who I think will be the first boot, and who will win, and why other people will not win. And so this video says part 1 because we're just talking about the first 3 today, because I don't want this to be an hour-long video. That wouldn't be fun for you or me. And so I'll keep uploading them 3 at a time, and if you like them, I'll keep doing more. If you don't, I'll probably stop. But let's go. So the first one I did was Survivor Heroes vs. Villains 2. And so this is basically people who are heroes versus heroes or villains, like in the first Heroes versus Villains. But it's from seasons 21 and beyond. And so let's talk about who I think will be the first boot. And the first boot I'm going to have in purple. And so if the Heroes tribe goes to Tribal Council first, I think that the first boot will be Matt. And I think that Matt is like great at challenges and all that. And we see in the seasons with new players that the weaker people get picked off first. But I've seen that in All-Star seasons, they could care less about the challenges. It's more about the strategic threats. And so they pick off the strategic threats first, or the people they don't want to have on their tribe. And Matt, I mean, we saw in Redemption Island, he was great at challenges, but he told Boston Rob everything, and he lied about, or sorry, excuse me, he didn't lie. He told the truth too much. And so I think that people on this tribe will want to get him out because of that. And if the villain tribe goes to Tribal Council first, I do think that it will be Brandon Hance getting out first, considering his reputation from Caramoan and from South Pacific. In South Pacific, he told everybody everything, much like Matt. And in Caramoan, he was a crazy person, kind of. And so he did make it. I do think that he is going to be the first boot. Now let's talk about who I don't think can win, but not necessarily the first boot. And so let's start with the Heroes tribe. I don't think that Monica can win. I don't think that juries really like Monica. And I do think that people will be smart enough to not take her to the end because she's also very likable. So even if the jury does like Monica, I don't think that people would want to take her to the end. And then we see people like Malcolm and Joe. And these are people where I don't think they can ever win, because the second they win a challenge, or the second they lose a challenge, they'll be voted out because they will win a whole bunch of other challenges, and they could just win their way to the end, kind of like what Mike Holloway did to win in Survivor Worlds Apart. And then with John Mish and Christian Hubicki, if I'm saying his name right, I don't think that John or Christian will make it because they are both extremely likable people, and I don't think that anybody would want to take them to the final 3 because the jury will probably vote them to win. And then we've got Sarah and Cochran, and this one's tricky because these are 2 of people who I think are the best players to ever play the game, but I don't know how well they would do returning after their awesome wins. And so I think that people will see, especially like a Carolyn and a Joe, who are super fans, will see Cochran and Sarah as huge strategic threats. And I think that they will be picked off pretty early. And so I don't think that they can win. Meaning that this one will be a first-time winner. And then let's go to, I'm going to leave Carolyn and Xander up here so that we have a nice final 4, 2 from the villains and 2 from the heroes. So let's go to the villains. Now, one time I made a video on people who I think can never win again. And there were actually 3 of these people here were in that video. One of them was Sierra Easton. It's because of her reputation of being so good at the game, for voting out her mom, for going to rocks, for being a strategic mastermind, blindsiding Andrew Savage. I don't think that people will want to keep her because of all of that. And then Colton was another one that I think can never win because of the way he treats people. He's either going to be picked off early or brought to the end as a goat, and the jury will not vote for him. And then we've got Philip Shepard, who I think the exact same about Colton. He's either going to be picked off early or brought to the end as a goat. And then we've got two people that are very similar, Dawn and Holly. And I think that these people are just very apathetic about the game, and I don't think that the jury will respect that. And we saw that with Dawn and Caramoan, how Cochran won over her because she was very apathetic about the game. And then we've got Cass and Abby Maria, who are a lot alike. And I don't think that either of these people will make it because of their reputations of being kind of the mean people. And so I don't think that they can make it. So now we're down to a final four with Rick Devens, Ricard, Xander, and Carolyn. And so this one is very difficult because these four are all amazing players who have never been able to make it to the end. Only two of these people have ever made it to the final three. That's Carolyn and Xander. However, I do think that Rick Devens has potential to make it that far. I do think Ricard has potential to make it that far. However, I don't know if Carolyn does. And we saw in Worlds Apart that she lost by, I think she lost by one vote. I could be very wrong. I'm not sure. But Sharon didn't vote for her because she made all of her votes, or all of her moves in the dark. Whereas people like Mike made them out in the open. People like Xander, Ricard, and Rick do that. And so I think that she cannot win because of that. And then we've got people like Ricard and Rick, who I think people won't take them to the end because if they do get to the end, they have a locked jury vote. And so I don't think that either of these people will be taken to the end because of that. Granted, they could immunity challenge their way to the end, but I don't know if either of these people are that great of challenge beasts. And then we've got Xander, who I do think would win a season like this. I do think that Xander would win. I think that he is one of the best runner-ups of all time, one of the best to never win, and he has adapted to the new gameplay, to the new style of game. And he's the only one here, other than Ricard, who has played in the Drop the 4, Keep the 1 season. And so I do think that he has the potential to win. Let's move on to Survivor Legends. So in Survivor Legends, I took people who have never won before, and I divided them into old school versus new school. And I have a couple that were on the last one. And I have, I have Cass, I have Ricard, Malcolm, and Sierra. All of these people were on the last one, and my Heroes versus Villains too. And so I probably will have a lot of the same reasoning for them, although a lot of those things were because of the people they were with. And so let's start with the old school tribe, who I think would be the first boo if this tribe went to tribal council. Now, this is very difficult because we saw Russell Hantz got voted out very early in his last season, and we see people who haven't played in a long time, like Stephanie, Jerry, and Rob. These people haven't played in a very long time. Last time Rupert played, he was the first boo. But I do think that Russell Hantz will be the first boo because of his reputation in the game. I don't think that he can ever do well again. And then let's go down to the new school tribe, who I think will be the first boo. This is a very difficult one because we've got great players. Not a single one of these players is a bad player. Every single one of these players is not only great at the physical part, but amazing at the strategic part. I mean, we've got people like Ricard and Malcolm and Spencer who are amazing at the physical part, but everybody here is equally good at the strategic part, and that's why this is so difficult. But I do think, oh, whoops, I'm drawing on my thing. Let me erase it. Sorry. Okay. I do think that a first boot would be likely to be a Cass because of her reputation of being Chaos Cass. I mean, that's what she calls herself. And so I do think that she would be the first boot. Even though Sierra was the first boot of her last season, I do think that Cass will be for this season. Now let's go for the old school tribe, who I do not think can win. Now, I'm going to start crossing off people who haven't played in a new school season. I'm classifying new school as since heroes versus villains. So if they played in heroes versus villains but haven't played since them, I'm crossing them off. So Amanda, Rob, Candace, and not Candace. She played in Blood versus Water. Although I am going to keep her crossed because she barely played in that one. She was on Redemption Island until she lost. And then Stephanie LaGrossa. And I'm actually going to keep Jerry. And that's because Jerry played such a great game in Heroes vs. Villains. I do think that she is able to adapt. And that's what she proved in Heroes vs. Villains, that she can adapt. I'm also going to cross off Rupert because, just like Candace, he barely played in Blood vs. Water. Now we're down to just 4 in the bottom row, and this one's very difficult because all 4 of these players are amazing. However, I do not think that Coach can ever win because if you look back at Coach in Tocantins and you look at Coach in South Pacific, there's such a difference in his gameplay, and it's kind of like you wouldn't see a Coach win because even though he acts different in South Pacific, he still is that Coach from Tocantins, and I don't think anybody would ever vote for him to win. Unfortunately, he's one of my favorite players of all time, and much like Coach, another one of my favorite players of all time is Cherie. But I don't think that she can win in an All-Star season. Now, in a leader season, oh my goodness, she would. I have my bet on her for winning, but in an All-Star season, I don't know how well she could do. So now for the new school tribe, who I don't think can win. I don't think Andrea can because Jeff couldn't have said it better at the reunion for Caramoan. It's the boys that get her. I mean, she'll follow somebody like a Malcolm or like a Dominic, who will take her very far, but then blindside her. And I don't think she'll do well with a group like this, and so I don't think she can win. And like I said before, I don't think Sierra can ever win because of her reputation. This one's very difficult. Like I said, all of these people are strategic masterminds, and so I don't think that Dominic can win because of he basically won in Ghost Island. He tied for the win. And so I don't think people will look at him as like the person who can never do it. I think they'll look at him as the person who could do it, but then just got unlucky. And so I don't think that he can win an All-Star season. And then I don't think Ricard can win because of his reputation, much like Kelly Wentworth, who I also don't think can win, and also like Aubrey. And we look at her game in Edge of Extinction, which wasn't very great, and so I don't think that she can make it. And I also don't think Malcolm can win because I think that he'll go the second he loses a challenge. And now we're down to Zeke, Spencer, Ozzy, and Jerry. And Ozzy, I don't think can make it because he'll go the second he loses a challenge, much like we saw in Game Changers. And then it's down to Jerry and Spencer and Zeke. And this is very difficult because all 3 of these players are so good. But I don't think that Jerry will want to be taken to the final 3. And so I don't think that she can win this. So it's down to Spencer and Zeke. And I do think that Spencer will end up winning, will end up getting voted out, and Zeke will be the winner. I think that Spencer will not be taken to the final 3 because he is such a legend in Survivor, and Zeke is still building a name for himself, And so I do think that Zeke will win this season. He is so great at strategy, and so that is why I think he can win. Now let's move on to Survivor What If. Okay, so next for Survivor What If. This one is the only Dreamcast I have so far where I have 21 players. And that's because I was thinking that somebody who didn't get chosen for a group, I was thinking like you could do like people draw rocks and they get to choose who's on their team, much like they did in Survivor Gabon. I was thinking that would be cool to do something like that. And so the person who doesn't win would probably be sent to Ghost Island. And so that's why I have 21 people on here. And I did not split them into tribes because I couldn't really think of a theme for tribes, so they'll be split randomly. But this one's very difficult because you look at people with all different archetypes, where in Legends you had like all of the strategic masterminds, and in Heroes vs. Villains you either had heroes or you had villains. In this one you have all different archetypes. You have the challenge beast, the strategist, the socialist. And so it's very difficult. But people who I do not think can win, there are a lot of those. But let's start with the first boot. The person who I think will be the first boot is Reynold. I think that is because people don't know much about him, but they do know that he's great at challenges. And so, like I said before, in All-Star seasons, they're not really looking for people who are great at challenges. They're looking for people who they don't really like, So I don't think that Reynold will make it far. In fact, I think he will be the first boot. Now let's talk about people who I think cannot win. Now, I think that Shan will be voted out because of her threat to the jury. I think that Terry Dietz will be voted out because of his reputation in the challenges. Same thing with Colby. I think that Aubrey has a reputation for herself for being a strategist, and Chrissy for doing the challenges great. People don't know enough about Caleb, which is why I think people will vote him off. And then, like I said with Andrea before, I don't think that she'll make wise decisions in the alliance department. And Kenny, I just don't think he understands how to get on the inside of a group, and so I don't think that he can do well. And Stephanie LaGrossa, I think that she's just too much of a strategist for her own good. Same thing with Suri and Spencer, and so I don't think that either of those could win either. And James is James, something will happen where he'll get blindsided for no reason, and he'll be voted out. And we're down to Ian, Troyzan, Dominic, Tiffany, Kelly, Eric, and Jerry. I don't think that Dominic can win because, like I said before, he basically won, or he got the votes to win. And I don't think Troyzan will be respected by a jury like we saw in Survivor Game Changers. I think that Ian is a challenge threat, let alone a strategic threat and a jury threat, and so I think that he will be voted out. So now we're down to 4, Eric, Kelly, Tiffany, and Jerry. And I don't think that Kelly or Tiffany can win because, these are the people that get into fights with other people. So I don't think that they can make it. I also forgot to mention Monica Culpepper. I don't think that she can make it because, much like Troyzan, I don't think the jury respects her. So now we are down to Eric and Jerry. And this is very difficult because they are very similar in their games in their last time playing. Like, I'm not talking about Jerry's Australia or All-Stars game. I'm talking about Jerry's game in Survivor Heroes vs. Villains and Eric's game in both Micronesia and Caramoan. And, it might be for Eric that 5 is the magic number where he goes home. We saw that twice now. And maybe Jerry can never make it to the final 3. I think both of these people are cursed with bad luck. But I don't know. It's so difficult to choose which one will win. But I do think that in the end, the jury will respect Eric's game more, and he can win more challenges. And so I do think that Eric Reichenbach can finally take the dub and win. So that's all I have for you. Stay tuned for part 2 of my Dreamcast predictions. Thanks for watching. See you later.